Welcome back. All right, so as promised, I've come up with a second Team Canada, and we can discuss this Team Canada. And I had to consider the defensive side of it as well. I'm putting together a team that likely will be over the salary cap, but the salary cap doesn't matter for Four Nations. And I wanted to break this up just a little bit, where I talk about, yes, these guys would be the top six, this would be your bottom six. I'm not overly concerned with having too many centers, to be honest, because centers can play wing. Wings normally don't play center, but just going through this. So the top six, in no particular order. Dylan Strome, 25 games, 8 goals, 26 assists, 34 points. I think Strome's had a remarkable season. And I think he's legitimate. I don't think the 34 points are just because of who he's playing with, because he's still producing even without Ovechkin in the lineup. So Strome has been having some success recently, and I think he would belong in that top six. Matt Duchene having a very strong season as well. 25 games, 12 goals, 16 assists, 28 points, and some international experience. I didn't want to just go with young guys, so that's why Macklin Celebrini does not make it onto my team. I felt like he's 18. In all likelihood, you're not going to have a lot of kids. I do have one, and I'll talk about that. But yeah, Duchene, 28 points in 25 games, I think belongs there. Mark Scheifele, 26 games, 13 goals, 14 assists, 27 points. I'm not going to be surprised if when we get to the actual tournament, if there's injuries, and that means Scheifele ends up being called upon to join the roster. Scheifele's a point per game guy and is really consistent. Nick Suzuki, 25 games, 10 goals, 16 assists, 26 points. Suzuki plays at both ends of the ice, which is important. In a tournament like this, it's not an all-star game. It's not going to be all out all the time. So keeping that in mind, I wanted to make sure I was picking guys that I felt like could play a good game, like Suzuki and Alexis Lafreniere. 24 games, 8 goals, 9 assists, 17 points. His production's fallen off lately, but he's a Ranger, so that's kind of been the way of things with the Rangers recently, and I wasn't going to hold it against him. I also put Robert Thomas into this top six. 14 games, 3 goals, 9 assists, 12 points for Thomas. One of the best pure passers, I think, in the game. So you've got Thomas and Strome, really good passers. Scheifele can score, Duchene. This is a pretty good mix, I think, for the top six. You guys can let me know your thoughts. And then in the bottom six, I went for a combination of the defense and some toughness as well, which is why Tom Wilson is on the roster also. He's having a really good year. 25 games, 9 goals, 10 assists, 19 points. And so I've seen, you need a little bit of toughness. You get a lot of toughness there. And Will Cooley. Cooley is playing a top role for the Rangers this year, but he can play bottom six. 24 games, 9 goals, 11 assists, 20 points. How about Jake Neighbors? Jake Neighbors not shy about pushing guys around if he needs to. 26 games also. He can get goals. 8 goals, 4 assists, 12 points. You want some sandpaper? How about Mason Marchment? 24 games, 11 goals, 14 assists, 25 points. I'm snickering to myself thinking about what this team would do and how much people would be irritated if you had, say, Wilson and Marchment on the same line. Right? You could have Jordan Staal in the middle. 25 games, 3 goals, 6 assists, 9 points. Stahl's not about offense, but he is about defense. And defensively, while I don't think he's as good this year as maybe last year, I still think in a tournament like this as a fourth line center, he'd be a nice steadying influence, and he's a veteran. And Jared McCann, 26 games, 10 goals, 13 assists, 23 points. He's a top line guy in Seattle, but he's played bottom six roles before, and he's played them well. That's part of the reason he ended up in Seattle. That's why they took him in the expansion draft. So that's a pretty good forward group, I think, top six and bottom six, and coming up with distinct roles. And then as a 13th forward, why not Connor Bedard? So 26 games for Bedard this year, 5 goals, 14 assists, 19 points. Bedard would jump into the lineup if there's an injury in the top six, or if you need to shake things up, because this tournament's going to go fast. You cannot afford to lose multiple games. So Connor Bedard could go into a top six role, or you could throw him into a bottom six and bump somebody else up in the event of an injury or just changing out the lines. But that's where I went with that. Now, defense. And this is where you're going to get a lot of discussion, and I would guess some disagreements as well. But Dougie Hamilton, 28 games, 5 goals, 16 assists, 21 points. He's having a remarkable season. And that's after what I remember to be kind of a bit of a slow start for him, too. Evan Bouchard's picked it up from a slow start. 25 games, 6 goals, 12 assists, 18 points. But what people are going to say about Bouchard is, but he makes mistakes. He does. He absolutely does. So you need to have a defenseman with him who's a veteran. How about Braden McNabb? 27 games, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. McNabb is not a point producer. He's a pure defensive defenseman. So he's spent his career playing that role, and he plays it really well in Vegas. Brandon Montour, 25 games, 7 goals, 10 assists, 17 points. I think that's probably the top 4, although Mackenzie Weegar, 26 games, 3 goals, 11 assists, 14 points. Jake Middleton, 25 games, 5 goals, 8 assists, 13 points. Middleton's had an amazing season so far for Minnesota. I did not check for left-hand, right-hand defensemen. I'm going to apologize now if they're all right-handed or all left-handed. I just went with who I felt were the best defensemen available. And then, 7th defenseman, I go with Chris Tanev. Why? Because if you're looking at defense, if you're looking at shot blocks, look no further than Chris Tanev. 25 games, 1 goal, 5 assists, 6 points. And Tanev can play that role of a shot blocker. He can play some top minutes too if need be. And so this does give whoever the coach is of Canada too a chance to go through and change things up if they need to. I didn't really think about who the coach would be for Team Canada too. I really didn't think about that. I should have. Would it be Rick Tocchet? Would people be okay with it being Rick Tocchet? Is that a no? I don't know who I'm asking. I guess the animals. So let's get to goaltending. Goaltending. Logan Thompson, 10-1-2, 913 save percentage. There was a lot of discussion about Thompson not being on Team Canada's roster. Apparently, he and Bruce Cassidy may not get along swimmingly. That is part of the reason, apparently, why he's no longer in Vegas. And so Capitals fans, you're welcome. But it does mean that I have 3 Capitals on my team, and I did see a lot of Washington fans yesterday saying, well, I don't know what we're going to watch in this tournament. And it is interesting that 30 out of 32 teams are represented in the tournament when the NHL insists on having every single team at the All-Star game that people don't generally care too much about. Just don't. That's just the way. It's really for kids, the All-Star game. Mackenzie Blackwood, 6-8-3 record, 909 save percentage. Cam Talbot, I have as the third, so this is starter, backup third. Talbot, 6-5-2 with a 915 save percentage. But all 3 of these goaltenders have played well. Blackwood's having an under-the-radar season because it's in San Jose. Thompson's had a really good run recently. He had a bit of a slow start there statistically. And Talbot just keeps putting up good numbers during the regular season. It's kind of what he does. So I'm not going to pretend this team would have I don't know. Like, if you put this team up against the first Canadian team that was announced yesterday, I don't think it's an easy win for the first Canadian team. And I think this is one of the great things about if you're a fan in the US or Canada right now, you can put up 2 teams. And I'll be doing the Team USA video next. I think the top 6 is good. I think the bottom 6 is very irritating. And that's part of the picture when you're putting together an international tournament. It's not just about the scoring. And, I did see that a lot yesterday. So I thought, yeah, I'll talk about that. And no, it's not always just about the scoring. Scoring's important, though. If you don't score more goals than the opponents, you lose. So it's a bewildering part of hockey that I still don't understand. But anyways, there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. And yes, if a player that you root for is not included in this list, it is because I secretly hate that player and your team. You got me. So there you go. But thank you guys so much for all your support. Hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for everything as we get closer and closer to Christmas. I hope everybody's having a good December. I will talk to you again soon.